we present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Andree Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parson.
Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, it is my pleasure to try and adjudicate between these four clever battlers in this game of verbal wits. And once again, I'm going to ask them to try and speak, if they can, for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. If one of the others thinks they're guilty of doing this, he may challenge, and if I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, whoever is speaking will gain a point and continue speaking on that subject. That's how we play, and that is how we score. And this week, let us begin the show with Clement Freud. You're all in the mood, I can see it from your face. A lovely subject to begin with, Clement, wine. Can you talk to us about wine for 60 seconds, starting now?
Wine is the fermented juice of grapes, red or white, usually given bottle age, and is also a cry of lament, about which more later. Many countries feel that they produce the best wine. In Austria, for instance, there's a song, Wien.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
No, he wasn't hesitating. He was going very well on wine, so I disagree with the challenge. Clement Freud has a point, and he has 41 seconds to continue with wine, starting now.
Nur du allein, das soll ein Stückel vom Himmel sein. Translated means Vienna and the Austrian capital city repeated.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Well, Austrian repeated.
No, he said Austria before, and this was Austrian.
Sorry.
So, but obviously you've got to get in because there's three other people trying. But as I disagree with the challenge, Clement Freud gains another point, and he has 30 seconds to continue with his wine, starting now.
Woe is me and lack a day, what a dreadful thing to happen to such a nice fella, is a kind of wine of which I'm less partial to which I am.
Andree Melly, you have challenged.
Repetition, two witches.
Two witches, yes, and we can't have two witches in this game. Andree Melly, I agree with your challenge, so you gain a point, and you have 18 seconds to continue talking on wine, starting now.
This is something I'm always telling my 2-year-old daughter not to do. When she says, "Please, Mommy, can I have?" and I say, "No, stop whining." Why do children always take on that type of voice? I don't know, because the other way we...
Clement Freud, your challenge came in first.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, I agree, so you gain a point, and you take over the subject of wine again for 3 seconds, starting now.
In the vineyards of Alsace-Lorraine, wine is named...
When the whistle goes, it tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that particular moment gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was once more Clement Freud. So at the end of that round, he's got 4 points, and Andree Melly has 1, and the other 2 have yet to score. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round for us? Getting a word in Edgeways. Very apt, considering you haven't achieved it yet in this particular show. So can you talk about that subject for 60 seconds, Kenneth, starting now?
Well, this, I take it to mean the difficulty of interjecting when the company is particularly volatile, fluent, shall we say, or perhaps loquacious. Now, the way of going about this is to raise the volume or level of your speech and...
And what? Clement Freud, you buzz.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. What were you going to say? Any idea?
I was going to do the interjection.
I don't think you'd have got a word in Edgeways if
I'd
you
already said interject.
Oh, I see. You were trying to avoid the word. So, I agree with Clement Freud's challenge, so he gains a point, and he has 35 seconds to take over the subject of getting a word in Edgeways, starting now.
In order to get a word in Edgeways, you have to present to the people a solid front into which you may, as it were, lance your verbiage.
Kenneth Williams' challenge, why?
I thought it was hesitation, I was wrong.
Well, well done. I quite agree it was wrong, but you tried. But all that happens is Clement gets another point, and there are 25 seconds for getting a word in Edgeways, Clement, starting now.
Sideways, upwards, and horizontally forwards are easier positions into which to brace this
Yes, you couldn't find another word to express the same thing. You've done it twice with different words. Kenneth Williams, your challenge came first.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree, Kenneth, so you get a point and you take over the subject. And Derek Nimmo has challenged as well.
I'm just sorry, my light didn't seem to be working. I was just testing it.
He was testing his buzzer. He is with us, and no doubt you'll be hearing from him before the show gets much further on. Anyway, 16 seconds left. Kenneth, getting a word in Edgeways, starting now.
One's best ploy is to attribute a remark to somebody famous, like, wasn't it Johnson who said, when a man sets a play to music, he is not under oath? Immediately your adversary is quelled. He does not know whether, in fact...
This time, Kenneth Williams was speaking when the whistle went, so he gains another point. And he now has 2. Clement Freud has 6. Andree Melly has 1. Andree Melly, your turn to begin. Subject, love. Can you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
It's a many splendid thing, makes the world go round, and has made songwriters an absolute fortune. There are many varieties: maternal, fraternal, exotic, erotic, neurotic.
Derek Nimmo challenged.
Repetition of turnbulls.
Yes, but I'm not going to allow it.
I'm sure you're not. You're absolutely right not to allow it.
It is a lovely thought.
Lovely thought.
Andree has another point, and there are 43 seconds left for Love, Andree, starting now.
You can fall into it head over heels and as quickly out. It's something which is very painful.
Kenneth Williams,
the
you
first
challenged.
time...
Why? What?
Yes, hesitation.
No, there was no hesitation.
Oh, yes.
There was not even a hint of hesitation. Andree
Fall
Melly.
in and out. That was that. You know.
It's just, you two go very slowly at your side. We're rather nippy over here. And you go like this all the time.
Having had your attention drawn to that, I don't see how you could be so presumptuous to challenge Andree for that. No, I disagree, Kenneth. There wasn't a hesitation there.
No,
Andree
I know why he was haranguing the queue outside.
Andree has another point, and there are 37 seconds left for Love, Andree, starting now.
When your beloved appears, you can get heart palpitations.
Derek Nimmo.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. That time, I agree. So, Derek, you take over the subject of love. 29 seconds left, starting now.
Of course, there's also Christian love, as really, I think the most interesting thing is the words written by St. Paul to the people of Corinth some many years ago, when he said, "Though I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, and I have not love, I'm but a sounding gong or a clanging cymbal."
Clement, why have you challenged?
It's deviation from Corinthians chapter 13.
Letter 2.
I don't believe it is.
Any B, actually.
What's that? I think Derek's absolutely right. And I think
Yeah.
Clement Freud is trying it on. He's trying to bluff. He's determined that he's not bluffing, so I will let the audience be the judge about the Bible.
The New English Bible I'm quoting from. It is, absolutely.
I don't have to put it to the audience. They've already decided with their applause. They've decided they're on Derek Nimmo's side on this. Derek Nimmo's side. Derek Nimmo has a point. There are 14 seconds left for Love. Derek starting now.
I may have the gift of prophecy and know every hidden truth. I may have faith strong enough to move mountains.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition.
Of what?
I may.
Oh, we don't travel on maze.
Yeah, we don't hold on.
Well, you've done it on it before. Yes, you
We've
have.
never
You see.
had.
By your voice with your own petard, dear, I have warned you. Once you let yourself go in that direction, you see,
I'm not going to bring my petard into this. The point is, we have not allowed challenges on haves and mays and buts and ands. I'm not going to allow it now.
You allowed it with one last week. They said one may, one this, one the other, and you said there were too many ones.
Yes,
so if you could have that, you
there was
can have
more
that.
than 2. There were 2 I mays. If he went on a third time, it would. I will score no points, but leave the subject with Derek Nimmo, and there are 9 seconds left for Love, Derek, starting now.
I was walking across Piccadilly Circus one day, and a fellow turned to me.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
The subject is love, not walking across.
How do you know that you might not encounter love walking across Piccadilly Circus?
That's 6 again.
That's sex. That's disgusting, isn't it? Don't clap him. It's a disgrace.
As Clement Freud said, you might encounter sex walking across Piccadilly Circus. It's still possible to encounter love. Pure love
Funny
as well.
sort of life you two must lead.
So he hasn't technically deviated from the subject on the card, so Derek has another point. 6 seconds left for love, starting now.
And this gentleman turned to me and said, "Hello, love, how are you?" And you know who it was? It was Kenneth Williams.
Well, obviously, Derek, the audience decided that you earned that bonus point for speaking when the whistle went, and you now have... you're in second place at the end of that round. Clement Freud is still leading, and 1 point behind you are Andree and Kenneth equal. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. Emergencies. Many of them happen on this program. Can you tell us about emergencies in just a minute, starting now?
These are occasions I take to mean when the circumstances become abnormal and risk is involved. In these eventualities, the great thing is to keep your head even though all around are losing theirs. Count up to 3 slowly and then decide which method will be the most sensible. Common sense cannot be overestimated in these situations. Always ask yourself...
Clement Freud, his challenge.
Oh, it's pouring off me.
That's an emergency if ever there was one. Clement, what was your challenge?
Situations. Repetition of the word situation.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Such a long time ago now. There's been so much sweat pouring off Kenneth in the meantime. Oh, he's training a little. I don't remember him saying situation. Did you say situation more than once, Kenneth?
No, but I'm sure Clement is a man of integrity. I do not think he would lie, and therefore I think we ought to accept it, yes.
Well said. Well said. There we are. Or is that another way of saying, yes, I definitely said situations twice?
I think I must have done it.
Yes, right. Clement Freud has a point, and there are 17 seconds left for emergencies, Clement, starting now.
Some have tennis elbow, and others...
Derek Nimmo challenged. Hesitation, yes. Your tennis elbow dried you up completely. Derek got in first, has a point, and there are 13 seconds left for emergencies. Derek, starting now.
I went to first aid classes because I think one ought to be prepared for any emergency if it happens, don't you, really? I think it's one of the things one really ought to educate one...
Andree Melly.
One really ought.
Yes, you did say really
I
twice,
did indeed, yes, I really did.
So
and as she's a woman of honour, I do feel that she's a bit challenge. And yes, she really meant it.
I would like to point out to these 4 keen competitors, when they bring up honour, how much it's appreciated by the audience. They clap spontaneously. This is what they want. So, anyway, Andree has a point. There are 5 seconds left for emergencies. Andree, starting now.
On a train one reads, do not pull the thing except in a state of great emergency.
Kenneth Williams, why do you shout?
Because it doesn't say do not pull the thing.
No, I know it doesn't say do not pull the thing, so you are deviating. And so Kenneth has a point, and he has 1 second left for emergencies, starting now.
You blow up your mate West!
Well, Kenneth Williams was speaking then when the whistle went, and he's now jumped into 3rd place behind Derek Nimmo, who's still trailing behind Clement Freud, who's still the leader. Derek, it's your turn to begin. My hidden vice. That is the subject on the card, Derek. Can you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
One of these things one's awfully dubious about confessing to the greater British public, but I'm terribly keen on formication. Now, what I do for this is, do you know what it means? Well, it's actually putting a feeling of formic acid on your body, as given by ants crawling all over you. And you know what I do? I go home at night and I have a little bottle with these insects in them, and I put it on my chest, and they go wiggling around beneath the hairs, and as they go, they pinch and bite, and it's absolutely delicious, and I've never told a soul before. And when I go back to my bed this evening, I will feel in the cupboard, produce this pot, and all these little chappies will be looking at me, and I'll say, hello, how are you? Are you ready? They'll give me a nod, and off they go, squandering away, squelching, squinking, because they do all sorts of funny things to me. Not only that, they push their eggs in front of them, and that's the most delicious feeling of all.
Andree Melly, why are you challenged?
2 deliciouses.
Oh, yeah.
But I think...
She's not a woman of honor.
I was listening to every word, you see,
Yes,
and
and I think the whole thing was so outrageously delicious, he's probably committed every crime already. So let him continue right up to the end, if he can, on my hidden vice. 7 seconds left, starting now.
And sometimes, when they're breeding, most fantastic things happen, because the male ants and the lady ones...
Well, the thought of those ants, I must explain to the listeners, has made Derek Nimmo get up and help himself to water. I think the whole thing was utterly devious. I'm sure he repeated himself and probably even hesitated.
Downright untrue to Martin.
But you won't get a point for the interruption, but you do get a point for speaking when the whistle went, and you now have a lead of 2 over Clement Freud at the end of that round. Andree Melly, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is sneezing. Can you talk to us on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is something that can be brought upon you by having a terrible cold or taking snuff or piece of dust up your nose. When it happens,
Clement Freud, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes. I must also explain to our listeners that Andree endeavoured to demonstrate what you're doing, so she grabbed her nose and she couldn't speak, and that was the chief reason she hesitated. But Clement, you have a point, and there are 49 seconds left for sneezing, starting now.
This is something which happens very often to people who have hay fever. Suddenly, for no good reason, it would appear, they begin to sneeze, first once, then again, a third time, and possibly repeated yet on another occasion. And my smallest son, Matthew, suffers from this disease, and it's very sad because in the summer all the other children ride ponies, but not my youngest offspring, the most junior member of my family.
Yes, was hesitation. He was still trying to find other words to express child or children. Anyway, there are 19 seconds left, Derek, for sneezing, starting now.
I'm terribly allergic to oysters, and when I was in the Loire last year, I had one of these things to eat, and it made me sneeze. It's very strange, isn't it,
Andree Melly.
Hesitation.
Yes,
Yes, of course
I
it
think
was.
so on this occasion, because I was a bit harsh with you last time on the delicious. So, Andree, you have a point, and there are 10 seconds left for sneezing, starting now.
Did you know that when this happens to you, you are obliged to close your eyes? It's absolutely impossible to keep them open, and I believe this is because they would fall out on your face.
We're all now trying to sneeze and see if we can catch our eyeballs. Keep your eyes open and we'll try and catch them, Derek. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. The subject is things I can do without. Can you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
The things that I could most easily do without are buzzers in the hands of people like Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Andree Melly. You begin to say something and they...
And Derek Nimmo.
Just demonstrating what they do, that's all. He couldn't think of the word, so he was going to hesitate to say something.
Well, all right, no point score. The subject stays with Clement Freud, and he has 48 seconds left for things I can do without, starting now.
Buzz.
Derek Nimmo, you have challenged.
Hesitation.
It was a definite hesitation. 46 seconds on things I can do without, starting now.
One of the things I can most easily do without is Clement Freud. He sits there week after year.
Kenneth Williams. I agree. Hesitation, Kenneth. There are 40 seconds for you to take over things I can do without, starting now.
The things I can do without are superficial and not really necessary in the sense of nutriment. Now, when I use that word, I of course mean that which provides for my inner well-being and not my outer. This world is far too much much concerned with materialism. Too little is the inward eye turned. Oh, I've said turned twice.
Derek, Nimmo, you challenge first.
Repetition of terms.
Well, we're not going to disagree, are we? Because there are 8 seconds left, Derek, for you to take over. Things I can do without starting now.
Covered with soup stains, his beard awry, the great belly squelching over the chair, all the time being so disagreeable to everybody.
And we never discovered who he was referring to. Derek, you were speaking when the whistle went, so you have yet another point at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. The subject, revolutions. I don't know if we've ever started any. We've almost started some in this program, but not. Anyway, will you talk about them for 60 seconds starting now?
Well, this can be taken to mean travelling the perimeter of a circle completely, or, of course, it can mean to change the status quo, not to be confused with rebellion, which is to protest against this said thing, and the other is establishing a new order. They seldom succeed. The French Revolution is a prime example of a low.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
If it's a revolution, it has succeeded. It's rebellions that don't succeed.
Everybody seems convinced except you, Kenneth.
I didn't say that. I said to change the status quo. And I said, apropos of that, they seldom succeed. I didn't say
the French
Revolution didn't succeed. Of course I didn't. What rubbish.
No, I think Clement has a point, which he made very cleverly. So he gains a point and takes over the subject of revolutions.
Well, it's a disgrace. And I've a good mind to leave. To leave here. I've got other things I could do. I've been thrown out. I'm here all this way. Disgrace.
28 seconds for Clement to continue on revolution starting now.
The French Revolution took place in France.
It's just totally rubbishy. It's what do you call it?
You want to get back in again, don't you, Kenneth? You're trying very hard. Bad luck, Kenneth. I'm sorry. I can't quite agree. I'm afraid the French Revolution did take place in France. So Clement Freud has another point. There are 24 seconds left for revolutions starting now.
Of which country Paris was then and is now the capital city. The population at the time of
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged? Not quite. Very close. Kenneth...
Well, it's all deviation anyway. I mean, the population of Paris and the fact that it's the capital city of France has nothing to do with revolutions at all.
I think it has.
It's irrelevant, totally irrelevant.
Oh, nothing irrelevant about it. We've already established there was the Great Revolution, the French Revolution, and he's on this subject. It took place in Paris. It started in Paris. Anyway, so there are 16 seconds for Clement to continue with revolution starting now.
If you buy a gramophone record, which is now called a disc, it has written upon it the words or letters RPM, meaning revolutions per minute. And this is the number of times that the disc goes around.
Andree, Melly, why have you challenged?
2 discs.
2 discs, yes, Andree. So you have a point. And there are 3 seconds left for revolutions, Andree, starting now.
A lot of people lost their heads with the guillotine, and...
Well, I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week, so it only remains for me to give you the final score at the end of that round. In this game, which after all is only a game, however keenly they may play it, Kenneth Williams was mildly in 4th place.
Only by unfairness and cheating, otherwise I should have won.
I would say, looking at the score, whatever things you may think, you're definitely in 4th place, Kenneth.
Wait till I get you outside,
Not content with intimidating me on the show, they now want to intimidate me outside as well. Andree Melly was obviously in 3rd place. Derek Nimmo was marginally in 2nd place. And Clement Freud was definitely, by 2 points, in 1st place. This week's winner, Clement Freud. In spite of Revolutions, things I can do without, sneezing, my hidden vice, emergencies, love, getting a word in Edgeways, and wine. We come to the end of this particular program. We do hope that you've enjoyed it. From all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Andree Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, I'm going to ask these four seasoned battlers of this game to try and talk for just a minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject if they can. If one of the other three think they are guilty of doing this, they may challenge. And if I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, whoever is speaking will gain a point and continue with the subject as long as they can. That's the way we score, and that is the way that we play the game. And the audience have already started laughing because Kenneth Williams is already doing his tricks. Which is playing to the audience. The subject is what excites me. So, can you talk on that subject? What excites me for 60 seconds, Kenneth, starting now?
Well, I think that in common with most people, I find extremely exciting the spectacle of semi-nudity as opposed to the complete thing. A small amount exposed really gets me going. The curiosity, which is the insatiable element, I think, in all of us, is tickled, if you like, aroused. And one mentally wonders, what's going on underneath, you see? Even the faint...
Clement Freud, you've challenged well. What from?
You don't see.
You don't see what?
I didn't say I see, I said you wonder what's going on underneath.
You wonder what's going on underneath.
You see. Is what he said.
Now, very clever. It's a very clever challenge, but you see, when it comes to nudity, if you couldn't see it, or semi-nudity, you would not be able to be excited by it. Therefore, it is obviously not a legitimate challenge, because you've got to see semi-nudity to be able to be excited.
Oh, that's true, yes. Very good.
So, your what's that? Your colloquialism was apt in this occasion, Kenneth. I disagree with the challenge, so you gain a point and you keep the subject. And there are 23 seconds left for what excites me starting now.
Nothing more than the power of oratory. The finest speeches, words chosen with memorable precision and care, strike a reverberating chord in the memory, and one is reawakened, so to speak, renewed, so to speak.
Clement Freud, you challenge.
Repetition, he so to spoke.
He so to spoke, yes. And alas, there were only 3 seconds to go, and he would have kept the subject for 60 seconds otherwise, but Clement was the first to get in. He's so clever at doing that. And you, I agree with your challenge, Clement, so you gain the point. 3 seconds left for what excites me starting now.
Kenneth Williams' knees give me the...
Kenneth Williams' knees gives Clement Freud yet another point.
Oh, how completely
Because whoever
overcome.
is...
I don't know what to say. I really...
I wouldn't say anything, Kenneth. I'd just keep quiet. We often wonder what it was, the big bond between
Well,
you.
they
Which I
are
discovered.
nice, you know.
I
no, it's
must
not like
explain to our listeners that Kenneth has now shown his knees to our audience here. And from their reaction, they obviously thoroughly approve. Also, I must explain to listeners, if any of them heard a noise in the background of either a police car screaming in the distance, they weren't coming to help Kenneth Williams out. They were obviously on some other errand of mercy or emergency. The score, I must explain to those who may not know, whoever speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. In this case, it was Clement Freud. The whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up. Andree, Melly, it's your turn to begin. What to look for when buying a dog? That's what Mrs. has thought of for you, and will you talk about it for 60 seconds starting now?
I've written it down, yes.
Wait, I'm sorry, well, you have to write it down. We'll go back to the beginning.
Terribly sorry, yes, right.
Well, you must warn me in future if you're going to write things down.
It's
when they're
very long,
ones.
you see, terribly sorry.
I think you're just playing for time so you can think
that's
about
right,
it.
yes.
What to look for when buying a dog? Andree, Melly, 60 seconds starting now.
The most important thing to look for on this occasion is a dog. You want to find an animal with 4 legs, 2 ears, a nose, a pair of eyes, some teeth, if possible, a young version of the species. And you want to be sure that you know what kind of animal it's going to grow up to when it...
Clement Freud has challenged.
Representative animal.
That is right, she did say animal more than once. So, Clement, you gain another point. 41 seconds left for what to look for when buying a dog, starting now.
It's not at all a bad idea to look at cats, parrots, ferrets.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
No, I don't think so. No, almost, but not quite, no. So Clement has another point. 36 seconds left. What to look for when buying a dog, starting now.
And other animals, so that when you meet the dog, you're immediately able to say, you are a dog and I'm going to buy you.
Derek Nimmo's challenge,
On the
twice.
card.
I'm sorry. It was a great mistake.
Why?
Well, I was challenging wrongly on dog.
Yes,
On
that's
the
right,
card.
yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, there we are. Yes, you're being too keen. All that happens is Clement has another point, and there are 29 seconds left for what to look for when buying a dog, starting now.
Perusing carefully will show you the gender of the beast in question. Turning it upside down.
Kenneth Williams...
I haven't come here to listen to a load of filth. But we found the entertainment. Sit here and listen to looking between people's legs.
I kind of agree, Kenneth. I don't think it's necessary what to look for when buying a dog. I don't think you need
It's
to
not
look...
necessary. The dog is... We all know
No.
the dog is the dog. If he's saying about dogs
No,
and bitches...
Kenneth, let me say, if it was a bitch,
Oh, yes.
it's
that's what I
looking
meant,
when you're
yeah.
looking for kind of dog.
Well, if it was a
isn't
Yorkshire Terrier, you wouldn't say anything anyway, would you?
What to look for when buying a dog.
Yes, you wouldn't establish the gender, you say.
No, that's right. No, there we
You've
are.
got to.
You've got to establish the gender, in other words, you might get a bitch. That's what you're going to say. Well, all right. I will score no points because I think it was a debatable point, but I leave the subject with Clement Freud, who has 18 seconds to continue with what to look for when buying a dog, starting now.
Bright of eye, wet of nose, and savage of tooth is really what the ideal dog should be. He growls at strangers and licks friends. He mouths, barks.
Well, Clement Freud just managed to keep going until the whistle went, so he gains that extra point for speaking on the whistle, and as the challenges were debatable, he got no points for the challenges. I want to make that quite clear, but he still has a commanding lead at the end of that round, and he continues talking because it's your turn, Clement. The subject is pulling a cork. Can you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
That's absolutely disgusting. How can you talk about it? You grip it in your hand and you establish whether it's a hen or a cock. And then pluck it carefully.
Derek Nimmo, you challenged. Why?
He's not talking about pulling a cork, he's
No,
about
of course
pulling a cock.
Isn't
And
that what you
is-
said?
That is what I said, pulling a cork.
You could have fooled me, is all I can say.
All right. But Clement Freud, you did not fool us. So I'm going to give it to Derek Nimmo. He has a point.
We'll have to start all over again.
No,
No, that's
and
irritable,
Derek
is
Nimmo
it?
has rescued
Goodness
us.
knows what old ladies in the Falkland Islands will think. There'll be a lot of knitting stitches dropped out.
I refuse to believe that my diction is so bad. Derek Nimmo is going to take over the subject. There are 48 seconds left for pulling a cork. Starting now.
When you go fishing, it's very advisable to throw a cork into the water so you can see whereabouts the line is following your boat. Now, if you do not do this, the string goes right down and you don't see it again. Sometimes, of course, you can pull one out of a bottle, and my great-grandmother bequeathed onto me the most splendid corkscrew. It is worked on a trellis device, and patented, I might say, in the last century. It fits snugly on top of the bottle, and with a great swish, out it comes, and perhaps with a as well. That makes it particularly nice when you drink your wine, which could be muscadet, or perhaps some Merceau, or perhaps...
Andree, Melly, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, he was searching for another wine, and it's very difficult when you're having to keep going. So, Andree, I agree with your challenge. You take over the subject of pulling a cork, and there are 13 seconds left, starting now.
There are a great deal of new scientific ways of doing this these days. Some of them are to do with air pellets.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
That's not pulling a cork.
No,
That's air pressure which goes in.
Yes, that is not pulling a cork. You see, pulling a cork. No, it's the pressure behind that shoots the cork out. You see, it's rather scientific. So, you were deviating, and Derek gets the subject back, and there are 6 seconds left for pulling a cork, starting
I
now.
tied a piece of string on the end of the cork, and I walked round Trafalgar Square.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged? String, yes.
Absolutely
you had
right.
string.
Jolly good. Well listened, Ken.
So, Kenneth, you gained the subject and a point, and there are 4.5 seconds left for pulling a cork, starting now.
Well, it's always best to leave this sort of thing to waiters. They do it far better than I do it, and I always do.
Kenneth, will you begin the next round? Patriotism. Will you talk to us about patriotism for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, that great woman, Edith Cavell, said, "It is not enough." She said, "There must be no hatred in my heart for anyone." And I think it's very, very beautiful. On the other hand...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition of very, very.
It doesn't matter.
No, it was not a repetition of very, very, it was a repetition of very.
Very, very beautiful. Oh, well, I mean, repetition. Very, yeah, well.
Yes, well, all right, but it was a bit of a tough one, because after all, he was quoting and he was giving a very fine example of patriotism,
Right.
so I will charge no points, leave the subject with Kenneth Williams. 50 seconds left. Patriotism, Kenneth, starting now.
Dr. Johnson said it was the last refuge of a scoundrel. And, of course, there is something to be said from this point of view. It has been used or abused by many people in the world. I have no time for it myself. I think much the same thing applies to any piece of land. You can't say this is peculiar because of so-and-so and so. I mean...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Rather a lot of so.
Yes, that time definitely repetition. So,
It was
Derek,
nice.
Yeah. But he definitely gains a point that time, and there are 19 seconds left for patriotism. Derek, starting now.
I'm deeply ashamed of Kenneth Williams' view on patriotism. Red, white, and blue, what does it mean to you? Surely you're proud. Shout it aloud. Let it be known.
Deviation. He's doing a song now. He's not listening.
He is doing a very patriotic song, so he is still on the subject of patriotism. Therefore, I disagree with the challenge. Therefore,
Well, in that case, we could all start quoting reams of songs.
you were quoting someone's
Dr.
speech.
Johnson, Edith Cavell.
That's different with me, because I do it beautiful.
Others would do it beautifully, but you do it beautiful. Anyway, Derek has a point, and there are 8.5 seconds left, Derek, for patriotism, starting now.
Down I go to Dover with my Union Jack, and I stand on the cliffs. What ho, I say! I'm an Englishman and proud of it. Come on, you...
Why is he walking along like that, Nick, and sticking his behind out?
This is one of those moments when we wish this was television and not radio, because Derek Nimmo was giving an impersonation of Kenneth Williams arriving at the beginning of the show.
Well, it's a disgrace, because you shouldn't mock infirmity.
You've mocked his impediment before now, his stutter.
Oh, I thought it was a pediment. I'm sorry.
No, that's on his foot. Right, the subject is Derek Nimmo to start. Yeah. Clock chimes. All right, Derek. 60 seconds on that subject, if you can, starting now.
I once knew a man who sat outside a big building to listen to the chimes. That's not very...
Someone's challenged.
Yes, he mistook it. He thought he said it twice and he hasn't. Go on.
Yeah, but if he... Nothing to do with... No. If he challenges, if he can't justify his challenge...
Who challenged?
Well, somebody pressed the buzzer. But no light came on, I'm afraid.
I see.
Oh, wasn't really.
Now...
Okay, lock the doors. Nobody leave the house.
I'm going to put you all on your honour. You've all been very honourable up to now. Who pressed the buzzer? It wasn't... There we are. So, it was an incorrect challenge, so Derek Nimmo gets another point. And
You're very buoyant tonight, aren't you?
I'm all revved up, like a clock chimer. So, there are 51 seconds left for you, Derek, on clock chimes starting now.
I must say, I love the sound of a jolly old clock chime, don't you? Ding, dang, dong, dong. Ding, bang, bong, bang. No more enjoyable noise.
Clement Freud challenge you.
Repetition.
Of what?
More and more.
That is quite correct. Yes, I wanted to hear. You might have said
What?
ding or bung.
You said
or
more
dong.
and more.
Having got clever
did
around
I?
your dings, dongs, and bungs, and bangs, and all that, you then were so carried away you said more and more, and Clement spotted it. I agree with your challenge, Clement. You get another point. 41 seconds left for clock chime starting now.
One of the most famous clocks is called Big Ben, and it chimes on the hour and...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Well, the clock is not called Big Ben.
That is perfectly correct. The bell is Big Ben. Well done, Derek. So that was deviation.
Well, what is it then that's called Big Ben? The bell?
The bell.
Well, the bell belongs to the clock, so when he says Big Ben...
He said the clock Big Ben chimes. It's the bell.
Well, what else is it that does...
What did you say
One of
then?
those famous clocks is called...
Yeah, well, if the
Ben
clock
is
is
clock.
called Big Ben, it's the clock that does do the chiming, isn't it?
No, it's...
Well, he's still right. Of course he is. The clock is the thing that...
Oh, well, all right. If you're going to start argument, let the audience judge. They haven't judged yet. Do you agree with Derek Nimmo's challenge? If you do, will you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? Will you all do it together now? There's no doubt about it. Derek Nimmo has a point, and there are 34 seconds left for clock chimes. Derek, starting now.
Tompion made some of the finest clocks in this country, and all of them have the most wonderful chimes fitted within them. Some can be seen in the Victoria and Albert Museum. If you go into their long gallery on the second floor, there you will see a wonderful burr walnut case clock, which is absolutely magnificent. One of the finest examples of craftsmanship, I think, in this country. Oranges and lemons, said the bells of Clement, and that is a pretty little...
Kenneth Williams, why did you challenge?
Right, hesitation. So the bell can claim.
If you had deviation, because Oranges Lemon said
Oh,
by the
yeah,
bells
did
of
you?
St. Clement's, yes.
No, you
Anyway.
started when you were speaking, didn't
Well,
you?
all right. It was also hesitation, I see. I quite agree. Yes, I quite agree. I quite agree. So, Kenneth, you have a point, and you have 8 seconds left for clock chimes starting now.
Not that I really want them. I regard them as the most dreadful sounds ever to come upon my ear. They don't float or it like the sweet south that we...
Well, Kenneth Williams was speaking then when the whistle went, and he's now jumped into 3rd place. And Kenneth Williams is in 3rd place, Andree's just behind in 4th. And Clement Freud, it's your turn to begin again. The subject is the invention I most approve. Can you talk about that invention for 60 seconds, starting now?
The invention of which I most approve is the wheel, and a very fascinating invention it was, because first of all they thought, let's make it a triangle. And they rolled this down a hill and found...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation. It's impossible to roll a triangle.
Now, you can only roll something that is round. You can make it turn from point to point, but that is not rolling.
I mean, this is how they got the wheel.
It's how they got the wheel, but they didn't roll a triangle. They moved the triangle from point to point. I decide that rolling is not a thing you can do with a triangle, so it must be a smooth surface to roll. Therefore, Kenneth has a point, and he takes over the subject with 47.5 seconds left, starting now. The subject, by the way, the invention I most approve, starting now.
Well, of course, there's no question about it. It is Kenneth Williams. This invention has delighted thousands of people who would, without it, have been totally bereft. People say to me, without you, where would my nights be?
Clement.
My evenings, totally empty.
Clement.
You fill the spaces.
Clement Freud challenged you. We're just loving
We've
it.
had 2 peoples.
Yes.
Yes, we did. I'm
And
afraid we had
without-
two peoples. People have
The
said
whole thing's deviation because I'm not an invention. I'm a natural product. So you could have got it
I know, but there
there. How
was...
any of you let it all go on for so long?
I'll tell you why.
I'm a natural product. I'm issue. You see, I
quiet,
issued
Kenneth, quiet for a minute. I'll tell you exactly why they let it go on.
Why?
Because you made such a point about your fascination. They
Yes, that's
really
true.
felt they should give you a chance to go
Yes.
on your... And they did.
I let it go because his mum's sitting in the front row nodding.
And I must... If this was television, the producer would now have whipped a camera onto her at this particular moment to show that she was thoroughly embarrassed about what her son was saying at this moment. Anyway, the subject is the invention I most approve. It's back with Clement Freud, who's getting another point, and there are 33 seconds left, starting now.
So then they tried with a square, pushing it along an incline, and not very fast did it move downwards. So
Derek, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Not quite. He was coming towards that moment of hesitation, but didn't quite achieve it. So Clement has another point, and there are 23 seconds for the invention I most approve, starting now.
they trimmed off the edges, put on a hubcap, invented spokes, and there was the wheel, rolled.
Derek Nimmo's challenge, why?
Repetition of invented.
Yes, that's right. Yes, you've had invented more than once. Derek, you have a point. You take over the subject of the invention I most approve. 17 seconds left, starting now.
The invention of which I most approve is the single yellow line. I find it absolutely fascinating when I go out of my house in the morning and there I see a great long slip of yellowness.
He couldn't get away from it, could he? Clement, you challenge first.
Repetition.
Of what?
Yellow.
Yes, that is correct,
Yellowness.
yes. So, you said yellow more than once, Derek. Clement, you get another point. 3 seconds left for the invention I most approve, starting now.
A circle came later.
At the end of that round, Clement Freud again increased his lead over Derek Nimmo, who increased his lead a little over Kenneth Williams, and Kenneth increased it a little over Andree Melly, and in that order they are still at the end of that round. Kenneth, it's your turn to begin again. I paused because I wasn't quite sure what it's in as thought of you. It is the Snark. Can you talk about the Snark for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, I believe this is an imaginary animal. It occurs in the title, The Hunting of the Snark, and I understand it was written by someone called Dodgson or Lewis Carroll, as he was styled, for the purpose of authorship. And this whole thing had its beginning in the idea of diverting the young. It's certainly never succeeded with me. I infinitely prefer Gibbon or John Motley to this muck. But I believe with many people it has achieved a kind of popularity. The explanation...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition of achieved. Never cheated.
Yes, he
Achieved
did
popularity.
achieve. Yes, that's right.
clever of you.
Yes, he spotted that one, yes. He's very much alive. And Derek has another point, and there are 23 seconds left for the Snark.
One's
Derek.
always fascinated, I think, to think of Mr. Dodgson in his Oxford college, leaning out of the window, looking at little girls going across the grass, and all the time he's thinking of his snark. Now,
Derek, Clement Freud challenge, why?
Deviation.
Why?
Certainly deviation is a disgusting...
There were no little girls in Oxford colleges
that's
in
where
which...
he saw...
He could
That's
well
where
have
he saw
seen
Alice,
one
eh?
out of term time. You're allowed to take visitors into the
That's
colleges
where
out
he
of
saw,
term.
where he met Alice, you see, actually, in one room.
I don't think he saw a Snark. He might have seen a beaver.
Really, Alice is at it again, Alice.
No, you can't justify Clement.
was
Derek
there.
Nimmo has a point, and there are 15 seconds left for him to continue with the Snark, Derek, starting now.
I bought a new boat last week, and I'm going to call it the Snark. I think it's an awfully appropriate name for a catamaran, don't you? Because a catamaran has...
Andree Melly got in that time.
Repetition catamaran.
That is right, and there are 8 seconds left for the Snark, Andree, starting now.
This poem, which tells you how to hunt a snark.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
It's not a poem.
What is it then?
Prose.
It's not. It's
Oh.
poetry.
Oh, well, I've never read it. I always understood it was prose.
No, it's definitely poetry. It rhymes, with a tum-ti-tum, very much.
Oh, well, that's not poetry either then. That's doggerel. He wasn't a poet.
Well tried. They do try hard, don't they?
No, it's certainly not poetry. It's doggerel. Doggerel, unquestionably.
Some people think it's great fun and very good poetry. And Andree Melly has a point, and she
It's
continues
not
with the
even
Snark.
listed. He's not even listed in the Book of English Literature, this man. It's rubbish. It's all rubbish.
Kenneth Williams, you cannot get round me. Andree Melly has a point. There are 5 seconds left for the Snark, Andree, starting now.
Is difficult to understand because in a way it is a form of rubbish writing. And when you want to go and...
I'm afraid that is all we have time for. I see that it is time to call a halt to this particular edition of Just a Minute. So let me give you the final score. Reading backwards, as I like to do, but I find it very difficult, Andree Melly and Kenneth Williams were equal in 3rd place. They were a little way behind Derek Nimmo, who was in 2nd place, who was behind this week's winner, Clement Freud. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett.
Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Jacqueline MacKenzie in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute, and what a delightful-looking audience you appear to be. Well, once again, we are all in the Playhouse Theatre, and we have the 3 famous exponents of the game, and we welcome to the programme for the first time on the distaff side to challenge these 3 keen men, Jacqueline MacKenzie. And the rules are still the same. I'm going to ask each one to speak, if they can, for just a minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviation. In other words, without deviating from the subject. And according to how well they manage to do it, they will gain points or perhaps give them away. And let us begin the show this week with Derek Nimmo. Derek, the subject that's been chosen for you is my cooker. Can you talk about my cooker for 60 seconds, starting now?
My cooker is a woman, and her names are Patricia, Sybil, and Nimmo, and she happens to be my wife. And every morning...
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged right away.
He's not discussing a cooker, he's discussing a person.
Well, he is discussing a person.
Well,
Why
a person
can't
be a cooker. A person will be a cook. So there you are, you see.
This is a very...
Well, if you walk, you're a walker.
You don't say to her, here, you're a cooker. You say to her, you're a good cook, you are.
My children say you're a good cooker to me.
Right away, I'm not going to be the judge of this because it immediately puts me in the position...
You coward, you.
No.
Get out of it.
I happen to know Derek's wife. She's a very charming person, and I don't know whether she should be called a cooker or not.
She's just been...
She's
just been converted.
She's just been what?
Converted.
To what? Oh.
Natural gas.
Well, we've got off to a rip-roaring start. They've all got a jolly good joke. I'm now going to ask the audience to join in right at the very beginning of the show. And if you agree with Kenneth Williams' challenge, will you cheer? And if you disagree with his challenge, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? They don't think that Derek should call his wife a cooker. Is that clearly understood, Derek? So, Kenneth, you have gained the subject. You gain a point because that's a correct challenge. And there are 52 seconds left for my cooker, starting now.
My cooker is white and very beautiful in a clinical way. I often like just to sit looking at the chromium gleaming against this white background and the little...
Clement Freud, your challenge.
Who was it challenged?
Clement Freud is challenged. The man.
No.
And repetition of the word white.
I agree, there was repetition of the word white, so Clement, you gain a point and you take over the subject, and there are 39 seconds left for my cooker, starting now.
My cooker uses gas and has 5 points, also a grill, and beneath that, an oven. Many people enjoy coming to my house because of the excellence.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Deviation, I don't enjoy going to his house.
That is rude.
I said many people.
Can you give someone a bonus point for rudeness? All right, Derek, you made your point. You got a jolly good laugh. I won't charge any points because it isn't at all fair, and nobody's gained anything on that. And there are 27 seconds left. Clement Freud, for you can continue with my cooker, starting now.
Extracting an oven dish from...
Oh, Derek, why have you challenged again?
Repetition of oven.
No, there's an
Oh,
oven.
that's right, there was an oven.
Oh,
before.
yes, that is true. That is
Yes.
true.
Oven dish.
Yes, Derek, you gain a point.
My oven dish is not a cooker.
No,
You have
repetition of
used the
oven.
word oven before, so that is repetition.
There was an oven beneath the 5 points.
Anyway, Derek, you gain a point for a correct challenge. You take over the subject. There are 24 seconds left. My cooker, starting now.
My cooker is electric, and I keep it downstairs in a little room where it lives all by itself, and it is painted pale green to go with the walls, which are of a similar colour. It particularly likes me putting pea soup on top of it in a little pan, and I stir it with a silver spoon, which used to be in my mouth.
Clement Freud, you have challenged.
Repetition of little cooker, little room, little pan.
Yeah, it's a bit unfair, don't you think?
Oh, very unfair.
No, it's rather not.
Very unfair.
But it's absolutely accurate, so I have to give Clement Freud a point, and there are 4 seconds left for my cooker, Clement, starting now.
Frying pans go particularly...
Derek Nimmo has challenged.
Repetition of pans.
All right, he was tough with you, I'll be tough with him, so right, Derek, you have another point, and there are 2 seconds left for my
Say
cooker.
pans.
Didn't you say pants before? He did say pants before.
I thought he said pans when he was putting them in his oven.
Well, it probably wasn't that kind of a pan. I think you better let him have it.
Who do you think I should let have what, Kenneth?
Well, let him have the benefit of the doubt, I mean.
Who?
Derek.
All right, Derek got the benefit of the doubt. Clement said, Kenneth was an absolute impartial observer, so there are 2 seconds left, Derek, for my cooker, starting now.
The North Thames Gas Board are very...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes, which tells us that 60 seconds is up, gets an extra point. In this particular occasion, it was Derek Nimmo who very cleverly got in, so he now has a lead over everybody else at the end of that round. Kenneth, will you begin the next round for us? The subject for you, knowing your knowledge of history, I'm sure Ian Messrs. showed it especially, Robespierre. Can you talk to us about Robespierre for 60 seconds, starting now?
He came to the fore apropos of the Good challenge.
Jacqueline MacKenzie has
Oh, it's a
challenged you.
disgrace.
It's a hesitation.
It was
surely.
a definite hesitation.
Wait till your
yes.
turn comes.
I wish it didn't on this
Well,
one.
there we are. So, there we are. Robespierre completely floored him. And Jacqueline, it was a correct hesitation, a correct challenge. Jacqueline, so you gain a point. You take over the subject. There are 55 seconds left, starting now.
Robespierre was a revolting Frenchman and started the terror, as far as I know. He became a supreme being as starting the terror. He murdered...
Derek Nimmo has challenged you.
over terrorists.
Yes.
I was
Two terrors,
terrified.
yes, of course you were. But I'm afraid you said terror twice, so Derek's challenge, being correct, he gains another point. And there are 43 seconds left for Robespierre. Derek, starting now.
I stand there in my robes, peering round the corner towards the lovely statue in Madame Tussauds.
Kenneth Williams has challenged you. Why?
Because Robespierre is not Robespierre. I mean, it's a disgrace. Deviation, Ducky. You can't get rid of
You can't intimidate me. You can't get me around there. He had very...
Robespierre round, I'll come.
I am going to justify Robespierre is the title on the card. And Derek has very cleverly taken that word and said Robespierre ring, and he put an ing on it. And this is perfectly legitimate within the rules of the game. So he gets another point. There are 39 seconds left for Robespierre, Derek, starting now.
Towards the wax model of Robespierre in Madame Tussauds. This is very interesting because the first Madame Tussauds was...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition of Madame Tussauds.
That's right, it's perfectly correct, Clement. You gain a point, and there are 32 seconds left for Robespierre, Clement, starting now.
This is the name of a French gentleman who appeared during the Revolution, doing the most dastardly deeds to people who met...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
No hesitation.
I think that was a hesitation, Derek. I agree. 15 seconds left for you with Robespierre starting now.
One of my nightmares as a child was imagining that this fellow had come to see me on a dark night in July. I've always thought it'd be awfully nice to live in the time of the French Revolution.
Clement Freud has challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
There was no hesitation. He kept going. No, it sounded very strange, but it wasn't hesitation. He said, awful guy. Audience, I don't... Was that hesitation, audience? No, it wasn't hesitation.
No good asking then.
Why
We're
not?
up here. We can see the muscles moving, can't we?
Well, so can the audience. They've got as good a view as you, Kenneth. There are 7 seconds left for Robespierre. Derek, starting now.
Yes, a lot of Robespierre's friends went out, sans Colette, which means...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why? Oh, it's a mistake. I'm sorry. He's trying out his buzz. It's not working very well. No points scored. There are still 5 seconds left for Derek to continue with Robespierre starting now.
Which means not having your knickers on. And the thing that people used to say
Kenneth
to
Williams,
those...
why have you challenged?
I've challenged this deviation.
Yes.
I've not come here to listen to a load of filth. It's disgusting.
All right, I'm sure that Robespierre...
Underwear on a programme like this with people, family audience. Disgusting underwear.
In other
They don't
words-
come here to hear a load of stuff about underwear.
You've mentioned the word underwear. In other words, you don't think that
Well, I
Robespierre...
wasn't using the word he's using, have I? Gracious.
Am I to
Egg and
understand...
spoon race.
Kenneth, in other words, you don't think that Robespierre ever wore knickers.
I...
All right, I agree with that, Kenneth, so you have a point. And there are 3 seconds left for Robespierre, Kenneth, starting now.
Vous avez ce geste par moi, ouvrez la porte. Those are the famous words.
Well,
That was French, that was.
I'm glad you told us. We weren't quite sure. At the end of that round, Kenneth Williams was speaking when the
I'm
whistle
in the
went.
lead, so I'm in the lead.
No,
am I?
you're not in the lead. Shut up for a minute. But he has got 3 points now, alongside Clement Freud's fraud. Clement Freud's freed. Clement Freud's 4. And Jacqueline is just behind them. But Derek has a very definite lead at the end of that round. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. The subject is rather aptly at this moment that I should have to say this: concealing mistakes. So, Clement, would you talk about concealing mistakes? 60 seconds starting now.
The best way of concealing mistakes is not admitting to them. For instance, if you were to walk down a street, say 187 yards on a moonlit night, and suddenly pass a lamppost and say to it, "Good evening, police officer," and the lamppost doesn't reply, you would then
Derek
be
Nimmo, why
entirely
did you jump
into the
justified
lamppost?
in...
Yes, we've had this lamppost more than once.
Yeah, but it was ever so good. I was
We loved it all, and we loved the lamppost,
missed
too.
a treat.
You missed it, yes.
Well, you're very keen at the game, Clement. Get back in again and finish the story. But as chairman, I've got to award according to the rules of the game, and that is a repetition. So Derek gains a point, and the subject, 40 seconds left, starting now.
I think an awfully good way of starting afresh and concealing mistakes is turning over a new leaf. I'm always trying to do that, particularly when I'm speaking French. Je veux te serrer dans mes bras, je veux être ton amant. It's something which Kenneth Williams would awfully like to say.
Turning over a new leaf has nothing to do with the subject. The subject is concealing mistakes.
Like
Turning over a new leaf is another subject entirely. He's deviating. He's been deviating all the time. And as for that rogue's peering round at you, I've never heard such a load of codswallop.
I wouldn't go on about that, because you think that was unfair to you, but a lot of people might think that's unfair to Derek in giving Robespierre's knickers back to you.
I
Because
don't want
you
these
not-
knickers. I wish you wouldn't keep bringing it up.
You've got a point for that.
Here.
You've got a point for that, and a point for speaking when the whistle went. So you actually had a slight bonus there.
Oh, good.
No, he did actually say something about turning over a leaf and concealing mistakes, and went on about something to do with concealing mistakes when he was talking French. It all sounded very odd, but he didn't deviate from the subject of the card. 30 seconds left for Derek Nimmo with another point to continue concealing mistakes starting now.
Well, when Kenneth Williams makes a mistake, he shouts everybody down.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation, I am nothing to do with concealing mistakes. I am the most obvious mistake.
Kenneth, look, will you answer me truthfully? Did you say that just to give us a little entertainment, or was it a serious challenge?
No, all genius is a mistake. I mean, if you're of the herd, if you're common, then you're ordinary. If you're uncommon and extraordinary, then you're a mistake. You see, and I'm a mistake.
Well, I'm afraid the audience love you so much they can't think of you a mistake in that way. That all that happens is Derek gets another point. There are 27 seconds left for concealing mistakes, Derek, starting now.
If you are a member of the fraud squad, that is set up by the...
Jacqueline MacKenzie, you challenge.
A hesitation.
Yes, I agree, there was
Quite
a hesitation on that occasion.
Well done.
Jacqueline, you take over the subject, you get another point. And there are 21 seconds left for concealing mistakes, starting now.
Well, it's impossible to conceal mistakes on this program because everybody appears to be inventing the rules.
Derek, number one, you challenge.
I'm always concealing mistakes. Not a problem at all.
I disagree. I don't think you often do conceal your mistakes, so Jacqueline MacKenzie has another point.
Jolly good.
And there are 16 seconds left for Jacqueline to continue with the subject, starting now.
So on this program, the thing to do is to behave.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged again.
Repetition of program.
Yes, I'm afraid that's true. You see, this is the trouble, Derek. You came in and she got another point, and now she has to start again, which is very difficult, so she used the same word again. No, it's quite true, though. It was a correct challenge. You gain a point. 13 seconds left, Derek. Concealing mistakes, starting now.
Chartered accountants gain for this a great deal. They examine the books of large companies, particularly if the police ask them to, and go through them most carefully in
Clement, Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
The police don't ask chartered accountants.
Yes, that's very true. Oh, how right you are, my goodness.
Oh, Kenneth, keep quiet for a second. It's got nothing to do with you. It is quite possible, you know, that the police could, in a certain situation, ask a chartered accountant to look through the books. It might not be the chartered accountant for that firm, because they might be wishing to check on something, and they ask another independent chartered accountant.
You make the whole of English life sound like a French farce. You make up all this certain situation.
The way you play this game sounds like a French farce on occasion. No, it is possible that they could ask a chartered accountant to look through the books.
In Robespierre's knickers, I know.
Who didn't like saying the word? There are 5 seconds left for Derek Nimmo to continue with the subject, concealing mistakes. Derek, starting now.
The Board of Trade also often are asked to look into and examine...
Jacqueline MacKenzie, your turn to begin. Oh, what a wonderful subject for you, your first one round. How I feel at this moment. Now, can you tell us, Jacqueline, how you feel at this moment, starting now?
How I feel at this moment is succinctly deranged, faced by these three gentlemen who are determined to put me off everything I attempt to say. I would like to take a more substantial evidence of my sensations. It can be approached in two ways. From the outside, which I would like to ask Mr. Nimmo to help me to do, as he is next to me, by touching me objectively, while I continue subjectively with...
I'm sorry, Jacqueline MacKenzie, you challenged yourself.
Well, Derek Nimmo was deviating.
She's a clever girl, isn't she? Not only a clever girl, she's very quick at picking up the game. Jacqueline, you've challenged yourself very cleverly. You gave yourself a point. You keep the subject. What other little ploy have you... 31 seconds left for how I feel at this moment, Jacqueline, starting now.
Well, my susceptibilities range all over.
Clement, Freud, why have you challenged?
We've had those.
What, her susceptibilities?
Yes.
I don't remember your susceptibilities coming in before. Did they?
We haven't had those, evidently.
Her susceptibilities. No, so she has another point. 29 seconds left for how I feel at this moment, Jacqueline, starting now.
On my nervous system, which is getting gradually more and more tense.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
More and more. Repetition.
Derek Nimmo, I will show you this piece of paper on which your lead is so commanding. I'm going to say... Yes, it was absolutely genuine.
Whether his lead commanding or not's not the point. It was more and more, and that's repetition.
I suggest it was much more progressive as my feelings.
I am a judge in the sense that I feel I should show a little chivalry and consideration to a lady who's joined us for the first time.
Gallant bit.
Yes. And Derek is the one, with his lead as it is, who can afford to cast aside a point.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. No, Derek, it was absolutely genuine, but I think you would agree with me that Jacqueline should continue about how she feels this moment.
You're concealing a mistake.
You are absolutely right, but I'm going to give a point to Jacqueline MacKenzie, and she tells us more about how she feels this moment, and there are 24 seconds left starting now.
Which is not to conceal a single mistake. I will now have to take over Derek Nimmo's share, talking about my textural and tactile aspects, such as leaning against cushions, or men's hairy chins, or even bath water.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
3 oars.
In the bath water, she had a different type of oar, I think. Jacqueline MacKenzie has another point and 9 seconds to continue with how she feels at this moment, starting now.
Endlessly on to just a minute. This...
Kenneth Williams...
Hesitation.
Yes, I agree that time.
Oh, it was for a minute.
What?
It was for a minute.
Yes, you can't hesitate even for a second. Kenneth, you have a point, and there are 5 seconds left for how I feel at this moment, starting now.
I am throbbing with a natural excitement when I exude my own animal magnetism.
Well,
So that means I'm in the lead, right?
No,
I
it's
must
not
be.
really.
I must be in the lead. Yes, of course. He's doing the figures, isn't he?
Oh. You've just...
Wait, I think he's done them.
At the end of that... I must explain to... It's very difficult for me to explain to the listeners what occurred there. Kenneth did actually come over and look over my shoulder to see if he was in the lead. He was so shocked to see that he was in 3rd place that he stuck his posterior out and waddled back to his seat. And that was what made the audience laugh. It's still sticking out, actually. So, at the end of that round, Jacqueline MacKenzie has crept up a little, but they're trailing quite a bit behind Derek Nimmo. And Kenneth, will you like to begin the next round for us? The subject is permissiveness. The audience obviously seem to think you can talk well on that subject, so can you begin now?
As it is used today, it is taken to denote a kind of toleration which I do not approve of. People going around behaving disgracefully, organizing marches, protests, dressing up, funny air, disgraceful smells, and appalling I haven't finished, do you mind?
The repetition of disgraceful.
Yes, you did say disgraceful twice, unfortunately.
Did I?
Yes. It's a great pity, because obviously you wanted to tell us all the rest of the story. But, Derek, I agree with the challenge. There are 37 seconds left for you to talk about permissiveness, starting now.
What people today call permissiveness seems to me to be a new frankness, which is something which I personally welcome. In Victorian times, life was much more.
Kenneth Williams, wife, your challenge.
Deviation. He says in Victorian times life was much more. How does he know what it was like in Victorian times?
Well, he's quite capable of reading, you know, and there's been some very good books written on the subject. And how else can we learn about it? You're a great historian yourself, Kenneth. How have you learned about
He
Cromwell
should say
and the rest?
then, in Victorian times, allegedly, it was so and so and so.
Kenneth, are you going to tell anybody how... Audience, quiet. Don't have it. You're being permissive, audience. You're on Kenneth's side. No. I mean, how else can anybody discover about anything? No, it's quite unjustified, in spite of what the audience think. There are 26 seconds left for Derek to continue with permissiveness, starting now.
If you pick up the popular newspapers today, they're filled with articles about this permissiveness. Do you like it? Do you think this helps at all?
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Well, it was all rubbish, I mean.
You may think it was rubbish, but he wasn't deviating from the subject, so Derek has another point. It continues for...
Well, I haven't said anything for ages.
You've just spoken.
No, I mean had a long go.
I'm afraid it's been one of those shows where nobody really has had a long go except Derek Nimmo. He's rather taken over the show this week, but still that happens sometimes, and even the best, and therefore people who write in and say, I favour one or the other, which is entirely untrue, will show that this isn't, because here's Derek running away with it. There are 18 seconds left for permissiveness, Derek, starting now.
The hypocrisy of the 19th century is something which I very much abhor. I do think...
Jacqueline MacKenzie, why have you challenged?
It wasn't about hypocrisy.
No, he said he abhorred it as opposed to the permissiveness of the present age. I think he got that quite clear. All that happens is Derek has another point. There are 12 seconds left for permissiveness, starting now.
The streets in that era were filled
Clement
with...
Freud, why did you challenge?
I'd like Derek to have another point as well.
You haven't heard from you for quite a long time. We did hear from you then, and I think it's very generous of you to give Derek yet another point. He doesn't need it, actually. He is going to win, I can assure you of that. So Derek has another point, and there are 7 seconds left for permissiveness starting now.
I think sometimes on a bus it's awfully nice to ignore the notice which says, don't spit here.
I might tell you the dear Messiter who holds the stopwatch for us even got permissive himself and let the watch run on after that last challenge. She only had to guess the last number of seconds. But I don't think there was any doubt about it that Derek has not only got a lot more points, and we have to come to the end of the show for this week. Let me tell you that Clement Freud and Kenneth Williams were both equal in 3rd place. They were just behind Jacqueline MacKenzie, who perhaps got a little encouragement from the chairman as it was her first time.
You're not kidding, mate.
But there's no doubt about it. This week's winner by I can't think.
Overwhelming.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. I need some, by an overwhelming
Majority.
by a commanding lead, an overwhelming majority of points, was Derek Nimmo. I think that is what actually is often termed a popular win. So thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope everybody listening has enjoyed it, and from us all here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hamish. Present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Jacqueline MacKenzie in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, we welcome the 4 keen competitors to do battle, and they're all going to try and speak, if they can, for just a minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviation. That is, without deviating from the subject on the card. And according to how well they do it, and how often they're challenged, they will either gain points or give them away. And let us begin the show this week with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, a very apt subject for you, and a marvellous subject, I think, to begin the show with, panic. Kenneth, will you talk to us about panic for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, this sort of thing generally sets in when the circumstances appear to be outside of the range of one's normal control. If a person understands...
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
What?
Why have you challenged Clement?
What the batteries run down.
The battery on your buzzer or the... So on what basis do you challenge then?
But I think maybe the audience...
The audience have definitely said that you won a point, but I wanted to know what you think.
I thought he slowed down beyond the realms of
slow
decency.
is not the point. It's hesitation you've got to get.
Yes, but there must become a point, Kenneth, when you get so
There's
slow.
no point. This game is about hesitation, deviation, or repetition, and I did none of those 3 things.
No, but you got...
So don't flannel me, mate.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Kenneth Williams Show. There must come a point, Kenneth, when you do go so slowly that it becomes, I think, interpreted as hesitation. I am not going to be the judge. If you agree with Clement Freud's challenge of a hesitation because of the slowness, will you cheer? If you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? You see, Kenneth? Clement Freud has a point. And there are 47 seconds left for Panic, Clement, starting now.
In the 1920s, Panic was one of the finest six-furlong sprinters to be seen on the racecourses of England. He won victories at Great Yarmouth, Newmarket, Devon and Exeter, and there was one occasion late in June at Ludlow.
Kenneth Williams,
I think his batteries are running down.
It's very clever. Did you see, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, how Kenneth suddenly got the idea and suddenly leapt forward? All right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll be utterly fair about this. I put the decision last time about batteries.
No, put it to him again.
All right. If you agree with Kenneth Williams' challenge, will you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? And you all do it together now. It wasn't as decisive as last time, but I would say the cheers just got it. Yes, just got it. Wasn't decisive, you see.
Of course they just got it. Jacqueline's right was on my side.
You cheered as well, did you?
Yeah.
All right, then. Clement Freud, who is so clever again, I'm sure can afford to be magnanimous and allow you to take over the subject of Panic again, having gained a point. 19 seconds left, starting now.
Very often leads to hysteria and a great screaming and shouting, rush for the doors, and people falling over each other in the Melly, police called, and fire brigades, horrible mutilations everywhere. Oh, my legs! Oh, my arms! Where's my head?
Clement Freud challenged just before the whistle went.
Repetition of oh my. Oh my legs, oh my arms.
It's true, isn't it? It's true. I've got to give it to him. He's so clever getting in just before the whistle goes. So, Clement, I have to agree with you. You gain another point. You take over the subject of Panic, and there are 2 seconds left, starting now.
Sandown Park on the outskirts of London.
For those of you who may not know, the whistle, which is blown so beautifully by Ian Messiter, who sits beside me, tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that moment gets an extra point. This occasion it was Clement Freud, so he now has a very commanding lead over everybody else at the end of that round. In fact, 2 people have yet to score, and Kenneth Williams has 1. Oh, Clement, it's your turn to begin the next round. The subject that's been thought of for you is 12th birthdays. So can you talk about 12th birthdays for 60 seconds, starting now?
But by a strange coincidence, this is exactly what is occurring in my family at this moment. And what we do is we go out and purchase macaroons and donuts, jam tarts, waffles, jellies, custards, and make biscuits, sandwiches of tomato and cheese, pickled chutney, relish, horseradish, to which he's particularly partial, and we get a cake with 12 candles, and by means of deploying a dozen matches, each of these static lights is lit or made active, as they say in television. Then do we gather around this festive board, and my wife, the honest butler, the carriage attendant, and our chauffeur sing happy birthday to you, joyous anniversary for the cheerful celebrations, dear Dominic, utter glumptiousness on the occasion of the renewal of your date of birth.
He kept going for 60 seconds, he kept going in spite of challenges. You were challenged. What was it?
I don't think his wife is an honest butler.
I don't know what her maiden name was, actually. But, no. I mean, obviously you can refer to your wife, especially if you're using a literary phrase. So, Clement, I have to agree with you. You gain another point, and there are 2 seconds left, starting now.
Up in a Christmas tree.
Well, Clement Freud got a strange subject, and in spite of the challenges, he kept going throughout to the end, and he has increased his lead quite considerably over everybody else at the end of that round. Jacqueline MacKenzie, will you begin the next round? The subject is occasions on which I wear earrings. You've had a little moment to think about the subject, so can you talk to us about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, I hope I'm not very different from other people, but as a rule, I wear earrings on my lobes at occasions, and this is something I haven't done latterly because I wear earrings only in public, on festive events, mostly at night. And latterly, with the fact that clothes aren't often won or worn late at night, I have been there...
Kenneth Williams, why are you
They're
challenged?
too late at night.
Yes, they were too late at night. And the
It's a bit
idea
dull,
of...
too, isn't it?
Well, not only that, the idea of clothes not being worn latterly late at night. I wonder what sort of parties Jacqueline attends, actually. Kenneth, I agree with your challenge, so you gain a point and you take over the subject. There are 37 seconds left. Occasions on which I wear earrings. You may well look shattered. You've had a little moment to think about it. Now tell us, Kenneth, would you the occasions...
I didn't realise that was the subject.
She said latterly twice and nobody challenged her way back because they didn't want to get in with it either. So you got in. Will you tell us, Kenneth, for 37 seconds, the occasions on which you wear earrings starting...
Oh, it's murder.
Starting now.
Well, the one occasion in which I did do it was
Clement,
when I
why have you
bought it.
challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
The subject's occasions.
Yes, and he spoke, he's about to tell us about one occasion on which...
The one occasion.
The one occasion.
Well, he often uses this expression, the one, the occasion, or the one
That's true,
occasion.
I do. He knows me. You
I agree that this is not probably the best English, but people do use this expression
right.
colloquially, and one has to speak colloquially in this game, otherwise you've never...
Very fair. That's very proper.
I'm glad I'm being proper with you. I was being Kenneth, you gain another point, because I disagree with the challenge. There are 34 seconds left for you to tell us the occasions on which I wear earrings starting now.
I remember purchasing these for a lady, and it occurred to me that I should try them out apropos of the... No, apropos.
Derek, never why your challenge?
Well, to apropos...
Well, I meant, you see, you're not supposed
Look,
to say
you've been
apropos
hit,
of. You're supposed to say
do it-
apropos the thing, not
Yes.
supposed to say apropos of it. That's what I was trying to correct myself. You see what I
They
mean?
made you self-conscious about your English because you said the occasion.
That's what I meant,
Yes, of course. But unfortunately, I have to agree with the challenge as it was legitimate. Derek gains a point.
Lackaday-roo.
We must ask him on the programme one time, mustn't we? There are 21 seconds left, Derek, for you to continue. Occasions on which I wear earrings starting now.
Whenever I go to a boy's 12th birthday, I always wear the most magnificent pair of sequined earrings, and I get onto my horse, which is a lovely white stallion, riding across the desert on my way there. And when I get and they see them, they
I'm
all...
sorry, the buzzer didn't sound, but actually, for the light in front of me tells me that Kenneth Williams challenged you, Derek. Why, Kenneth?
So sorry.
Because it's patently obvious that it was all lies.
Well, we don't know. It might be patently obvious to you, but we don't know, and therefore, as we have no means of judging, we just have to accept his word, and because he wasn't deviating from the subject on the card, and he continues with occasions on which I wear earrings, with another point, Derek. 11 seconds left, starting now.
Another time was when I was at Chiswick Empire in Aladdin, and I was playing the Grand Vizier, and I had 2 large gold earrings, which I found awfully attractive, and the audience used to applaud them every night when I went on stage.
Derek was speaking, then when the whistle went, he gains another point. He's now in second place, equal with Kenneth Williams, who are both trailing a little behind our leader still, Clement Freud. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. The subject is the art of listening. Would you talk to us for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
The art of listening consists in appearing to be interested whether you are, in fact, or not. And it is something I have never really mastered in the sense of mastery. But, of course, one can incline the head and appear to be interested. I find very, very difficult, and as I say, I often nod off. I frequently nod off.
Clement Freud, you challenge, why?
Well, where does one start?
Well, all right.
Not off, not off.
Not off, not off, not off. Yes. And Clement, I agree with the challenge. You gain a point. You take over the subject. 33 seconds left. The art of listening starting now.
This is really a very difficult subject on which to talk, because ideally one says nothing, inclines one's head, as my colleague Kenneth Williams so wisely stated.
Kenneth, why have you challenged?
There's repetition.
Why?
You just said I said it. And I did say
Yes, but-
incline your head. I just said it.
Yes, but you said it, but he didn't say it before. And that's when you're repetitious, when you're speaking with the subject, when you repeat it. was something that you actually said before, not in reference to somebody else who said something. So it's not a clear challenge. I mean, it's not a legitimate one. So Clement gets another point, and there are 18 seconds left for the art of listening, starting now.
Arthur III, Earl of Shrewsbury, was possibly the greatest exponent of this art, and many memorial statues have been put up in cities and county towns in England, showing this good man, this noble, virtuous soldier, inclined...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Sir Earl Shrewsbury wasn't a soldier.
How do you know? How does Clement know? How do I know? How does anybody in the audience know? He might have been a soldier. He might have been in the local home guard. He might have been in the local home guard. You never know the
The
time.
title's too old. There wasn't any
Of course, Derek knows this subject. You see, he's caught you out. This is the match.
You don't even know which Earl of Shrewsbury you're referring
The
to.
third Earl of Shrewsbury, he said.
Yeah, and he was definitely not a soldier.
Definitely not a soldier.
Ladies and gentlemen, he might have done some soldiering. We do not know for certain. So if you agree with Derek's challenge, would you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? You have decided that the third Earl of Shrewsbury never did any soldiering. And if there's any relations of his now, descendants of his listening in, and they thought that their ancestor did a little bit of soldiering, for the honour of the family, then I apologise for our audience. But Derek Nimmo gains a point and takes over the subject of the art of listening. 5 seconds left, starting now.
The second Lord Chesterfield, on the other hand, was the most splendid listener and was known through Whig society.
On that occasion, Derek Nimmo was speaking when the whistle went, so he gains another point, but he's still in second place behind Clement Freud. Kenneth Williams is in third place, a little way behind, and Jacqueline is trailing a little behind Kenneth. Jack's turn to begin the next round. It's tidying out my drawers. Can you talk to us about tidying out my drawers for 60 seconds, starting now?
Tidying out my drawers has been the bane of my existence because I live most of the time in a suitcase and I don't have those parts of a wardrobe within that transportation piece of item article. I spend my time tidying out other people's various receptacles for clothes, underwear, nasty pieces of paper, sweet papers that usually belong to...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Paper.
Yes, there were two pieces of paper. There was an awful lot of words. It didn't make sense, too, but there was definitely two pieces of paper.
So do my drawers make any sense?
Clement, you have got the subjects, and I defy you to continue in the same tone.
You defy him?
Yes.
You should encourage and help, not defy him.
I defy him not to lower the standard
Oh,
of
I
the program.
see. Oh, well, expressions are more articulate.
Give me a chance. Tidying out my drawers, Clement. Can you talk to us on that for 34 seconds, starting now?
I find this a very substantial task because my drawers are very much longer than most other people. But I begin by removing any hairs from my knees and upper thigh, whereafter I rise gently on the anatomy.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
I wish I hadn't.
So all that happens if you take back the challenge is that because you pressed your buzzer, Clement gains a point and continues for 18 seconds, tidying out my drawers, starting now.
There are also sideboards which contain pants and vests, shirts, collars...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Sideboards couldn't possibly contain vests and pants. They come down from your ears and you couldn't get...
And even, of course, Kenneth, even if you take sideboards in the other sense, that he has a sideboard in the dining room and he keeps his vest and pants in it, it's very devious, isn't it?
Yeah.
So on both scores, I must obviously give it to you and say that you have 14 seconds left for tidying up my drawers, starting now.
This is ridiculous and it should be retitled Tidying Up. I have never in my life heard the word accompanied by out, and it should never have been put so in the first place. Ian Messiter should be publicly catechized.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
He's not talking about the subject, he's just sort of castigating the
Of course I'm discussing the subject. I'm discussing the subject. Now it should be phrased. How dare! Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yes, he's right.
I've been affronted.
Leave him alone. And so...
Thank you, Kenneth.
All right, anybody else want to speak up for Kenneth Williams before the chairman says something? All right, so there we are. But you see, Derek, quite fairly, he was speaking about the subject on the card, and he was being very cruel to Ian Messerton, criticising him for the way
We thought
he
up the game.
And thought up the game. We invited you to be on the programme.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very horrid, Kenny, if you think about it.
So, but you gained a point, so what does it matter? That's all that matters, isn't it, this game, the points. So there are 2 seconds left for tidying out my drawers, Kenneth, starting now.
On the other hand, he draws me out, which is a very good thing to do.
Kenneth's draws have given him a leap forward. And he's gone from 4th to 3rd place, just behind Derek, who's still quite a way behind Clement Freud, who's still in the lead. Derek, a good subject for you to begin the next round with. Charlie. Can you talk to us about Charlie for 60 seconds, starting now?
I am proud to be able to say here that I am the original Charlie. There are lots of imitators, but when people see me in the street, my goodness, they say he's a right Charlie, and there I am. And I admit to it immediately. Also, of course, one thinks of speed bonny boat like a bird on the wing over the sea to sky, carrying the lad that's born to be king. What's the matter? Is there any buzz?
No. Clement Freud has buzz now.
I'm so sorry, I thought I had a buzz.
The hush put us in awe, but your actual delivery on that occasion put us in even more awestruck awe. And that's why you paused. Clement Freud got in first with his challenge. Why have you challenged, Clement?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree. Clement, you gain a point. 30 seconds left for Charlie, starting now.
Charlie is my darling, my...
Derek Nimmo, your challenge.
Well, it must be deviation.
All right, say no. Take the subject and a point, and 26 seconds left for Charlie, starting now.
I once appeared in a musical comedy in the Strand with that name and a girl on the end of it. And goodness me, it was a happy time. All sorts of jolly chums I made. Dame Anna Neagle, full stop, who was there with me, most lovely lady, and other people too, if I could only think who was the most beautiful of them all.
Jacqueline MacKenzie, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Yes, I think there was.
Oh, yes,
of course,
quite.
So, Jacqueline, you gain a point and the subject. There are 5 seconds left for Charlie, starting now.
Well, for my money, the greatest Charlie of all was Charlie Chaplin, Cockney, and a great...
Jacqueline MacKenzie was then speaking when the whistle went. She gains another point for that. She is still, alas, in 4th place behind Kenneth. Kenneth is just 2 points behind Derek, but they're all quite a few points behind Clement Freud. Kenneth, it's your turn to begin. The subject is Sunday. Can you talk to us for about a minute on that, starting now?
A day of solemnity when one hears church bells ringing, a hateful sound. And indeed, I wrote to this vicar and said, can't you stop them? And he said, no, it's the established church. We have the right to ring them whenever we like, to call them to worship. I said, well, do it another way. There's all sorts of modern ways you can do it. You don't have to say blang, blang, blang. It's a
Nimmo's
noise.
challenge.
It goes on, banging,
blang.
crashing all about. And the reverberation of that.
Blang.
I've known these, but mind you, they say the crack in Big Ben gives it its lovely quality, don't they? Have you heard that say? It's actually crack right away.
You blang.
You challenged me.
Derek challenged you.
Well, on grounds.
Blang, blang.
Blang, and you tried to blang your way out of it.
That was onomatopoeic.
So there we are. Derek, I agree with the challenge. A repetition of bangs, and you gain a point and the subject, and there are 35 seconds left for Sunday, starting now.
Sometimes I leap into my motor car and drive down to the coast. And there I have a little boat with a blue sail and a white hull. And I get into it and float across the waves with the oars going 1, 2, 3, because I have one at the front and 2 more at the back. And then
Clement Freud has challenged you.
Repetition of both 1 and 2.
Yes, that's right. You have one at the front, you said 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely right.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, goodness.
Clement has a point, and there are 17 seconds left for Sunday, starting now.
The 5th Lord Brecknock once said to his second wife that of the
Jacqueline
7...
MacKenzie, why have you
There's
challenged?
absolutely no 5th Lord Brecknock.
He means the pub.
obviously, as I was not prepared to judge on whether the third Earl of Shrewsbury did any soldiering, I am not going to judge on the fifth Earl Brecknock. Clement Freud gains another point, therefore, and he has 13 seconds for Sunday starting now.
Saturday night is the loneliest night of the week because...
Kenneth Williams' wife, who Chimes.
Saturday night is not what we're discussing. It's Sunday, and I don't see how, by any stretch of the imagination, you could possibly introduce Saturday night into this discussion. I am moved. I am impassioned by this.
You're absolutely right. And probably the reason you introduced it is because it's the day before Sunday. Has it not occurred to you? And so I'm afraid you didn't give him a chance. So though I'd love to hear you go further on Sunday, I must be fair according to the rules of the game. Yes. And say Clement has another point, and there are 10 seconds left for Sunday. Clement, starting now.
Because that is the night my sweetheart and I used to dance to
Derek Nimmo, challenge, right.
No hesitation.
Derek Nimmo has gained a point for a legitimate challenge. He takes over the subject with 7 seconds left for Sunday, starting now.
One Sunday, on the Isle of Shuna, I turned to the Dowager Viscountess Selby and said...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
We all know there's no such person.
It's a pub, Kenneth.
Well, Jacqueline, how do you turn to a pub and speak to her?
Easily.
Yes, and speak to her, Kenneth?
And if this dowager lady exists, she'll be furious if you say she's a pub.
All right, in deference to her ladyship, we'll say that Derek Nimmo has a point for an incorrect challenge. 2 seconds left, starting now.
Let's go down to the jetty, I think.
I'm sorry to have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that there's no more time to play this particular game of Just a Minute. Jacqueline MacKenzie was just in 4th place behind Kenneth Williams, who trained a little behind Derek Nimmo, who was in 2nd place. But our leader and winner this week was Clement Freud. For the sake of the chairman, the panel in future will stop bringing in names of the aristocracy. I find it very difficult to judge whether they're dead or alive. Well, we do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Joan Turner in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And it's my pleasure today to welcome for the first time to the programme Joan Turner, who's going to try and pit her wits against these 3 clever exponents of the game. And once again, I'm going to ask them all if they can speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. And according to how well they do it and whether they're challenged or not, they will gain points or their opponents will. And let us begin the show this week with Derek Nimmo. Derek, can you talk about enjoying life? I'm sure you can very well, so will you start off the show on that subject, 60 seconds now?
Well, I think travel really helps one to enjoy life tremendously. I awfully like going to the Aegean, perhaps to the Cyclades group of islands, going out on the lovely LA steamer across the wine-dark sea, landing at the quayside and being greeted by wonderful Grecian maidens, handing me a glass of ouzo, perhaps, or a little octopus, perhaps a cup of coffee. And there are...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
2 perhapses.
Yes, it was quite true. He did say perhaps twice, so I agree with the challenge. You get a point. You take over the subject. There are 37 seconds left. Enjoying life starting now.
It is utterly unnecessary to travel in order to enjoy life. You may have the most...
Derek Nimmo, you have challenged. Why?
Well, deviation, it is necessary to me, so it can't be utterly unnecessary.
In Clement Freud's neck of the woods, which is a phrase everybody seems to use these days, it can be. After all, he's not deviating from the subject. According to his ideas and opinion, it could be. So I'm afraid I have to disagree with your challenge, Derek. Clement gains a point, keeps the subject, 31 seconds left, enjoying life, starting now.
For instance, you can have a ball wallowing among the bickies and cakes at the bottom of your tin. Other people like to stuff themselves absolutely to their limits with chicken and turkey, with blackberries, red currants, all sorts of deliciousnesses which are seasonally...
Derek Nimmo.
Hesitation, perhaps.
Hesitation, certainly. So you get the subject back, you gain a point. There are 2 seconds left. Enjoying life, starting now.
The little cock robin sitting on...
For those of you who may be new to the game, and I believe we even have 1 or 2 in our audience tonight, I must explain that when the whistle goes, that tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Derek Nimmo, so he now has a lead of 1 at the end of that round over Clement Freud, and Kenneth Williams and Joan have yet to score. Kenneth, your turn to begin. Henry VIII. We know your historical bias and knowledge, so can you talk to us about Henry VIII for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, of course, it is extraordinary this beautiful-looking young man should have become such a gross monstrosity and should have resulted having been given the title.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Well, deviation, I think it's totally unfair in talking about Clement Freud.
I think the audience are very unfair to you, Clement. Do you notice they all clapped then? Well, all I can say, Derek, is the audience enjoyed it as much as we did, and Clement Freud, bless his heart. So there we are. We won't score any points for that horrible challenge. And I will say that Kenneth still has the subject, and there are 46 seconds left, nothing scored. Henry VIII, Kenneth, starting now.
In fairness, it must be said that he did believe in marrying the wife of his dead brother. He was committing a sin and did write a great treatise on the subject, for which he was given the title Defender of the Faith. Later on, this same gross creature...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Repetition of grace.
Oh, yes. But I said it in the other place, not in this place. That's all right.
It
doesn't matter. Another place.
It doesn't matter which place.
Remember
you
the
said
Jew
it
of Malta? That was another place.
It was another time in this present 60 seconds, but you have repeated gross since you started speaking.
Well, he was gross.
And you can't get out of it however grossly you try.
Well, I want us to go on a bit more. I don't want to just finish now. I just got worked up. You can see
Kenneth, you're quite right.
Yes,
I found it a most interesting story. And I don't care. If it takes an hour, I'd like to hear the whole thing.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. I've got at least
Have you two finished?
Oh, sorry.
There we are. That's right. You've had a little throb, Kenneth. So can we get back? Derek Nimmo, I agree with your challenge. Repetition of gross, so you take the subject over, and there are 24 seconds left. Henry VIII, starting now.
To get his divorce, of course, he had to go around various universities in Europe to find one that was able to come to the same conclusion as he had. But this had a very beneficial result, because this was the founding of the Church of England, the episcopate of which we are all so proud, and it is through that same Henry that we now have presiding and wandering around
Well, Derek Nimmo was speaking then when the whistle went, so he gains yet another point. And did you notice that once Derek starts going on any ecclesiastical subject, that awed tone comes into his voice and nobody dares to challenge him because
Yes, it's all hushed, doesn't it?
however much they feel that there might have been some discrepancies. Anyway, that means that Derek has increased his lead at the end of that round to everybody else. And Clement Freud, your turn to begin. My first car. Would you tell us all about that? 60 seconds starting now.
My first car is silver and smart and has 5 wheels and a chauffeur, as opposed to my second car, which is grotty and dark blue and doesn't have anyone to drive it at all. I think mentioning my first car, it would be a tremendous mistake if I ignored speaking of my third car, which is puce. Some people say heliotrope or purple, and doesn't go at all, and in fact stays in our garage where the assistant driver sometimes looks after it and wipes it. But to revert to my first car, it has stereo, audio, and phonio, which is the name of the person in charge of the wheel. And many a time have I leaned forward into the speaking tube and said, "Listen, you up there, go a little faster, or alternatively, turn the wheels."
Oh, Derek Nimmo challenged.
Well, hesitation, I'm afraid.
Yes,
That's awfully mean of you.
yes, 2 seconds to go. He almost made it.
You almost made it.
So, Derek, you gain a point, and there are 2 seconds left for my first car, starting now.
It was 1936 Buick, and I always had to use chewing gum.
Well, on that occasion, Derek Nimmo was speaking. When the whistle went, he gains yet another point, increases his lead at the end of that round. And Joan Turner, will you begin the next... In fact, you have to begin the next round because it's your turn. Top notes. What a marvellous subject that Ian Messer's chosen for you.
Yes, well, it
Can
seems-
you talk to us about your top notes, Joan?
Top notes. Oh.
Starting now.
Start now. Oh, oh, stop it, Derek. All together.
Clement Freud is challenged.
No, he hasn't. He can't do it. Because
He
I
has
haven't.
challenged. He has
No, I
challenged.
haven't finished speaking yet.
You hadn't started speaking.
We've gone for 9 seconds. So,
Repetition of the top C.
No, I only did it once. Oh, no, it was twice. It was once with Derek
I'm
and
glad
once
you
on
were
my
honest
own.
about it because my pitch is not such that I could have said it was all topsy. Well done, Clement. There are 51 seconds for your top notes, starting now. Derek Nimmo, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, you gain a point. Take over the subject. 49 seconds, your top notes, starting now.
It's a £100 note, and I keep it in a little cupboard at home, and I like it very much.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Because it's top notes we're discussing, not bank notes.
But his top
No,
note could be a
no,
bank
come
note.
along now. Don't be silly.
I'm not going to
Joan-
come along
Joan
anywhere.
has already illustrated it for us, so we know exactly what's under discussion. We
there are-
cannot go from musical notes to bank notes,
We can
dear.
if we like, as the
Now,
subject...
dear, come on, dear, now then. You're behaving like a
Kenneth.
piece of elastic. You'll stretch yourself so far, you'll split yourself right in the middle there.
You're getting a nice lot of laughs, Kenneth, but the subject is top notes. You can interpret that any way you wish. So Derek Nimmo gains another point. I disagree with your challenge. There are 45 seconds left, Derek. Top notes starting now.
Sherpa Tenzing, while sitting on the top of Everest, once wrote a little note to Mr. Edmund Hillary, and he said, "How nice to see you up here." And Edmund Hillary, because they couldn't speak at that height.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
2 Edmund Hillarys and no title.
Oh, yes.
We don't have any points for snobbishness.
Right.
He can say without the title if he wishes. But it was a repetition, Clement, so I agree with you. You get a point. You take over the subject. 32 seconds. Top notes starting now.
I think you are dishy, have lovely hair and eyes, and will you come home with me after school? Signed,
You
Veronica...
hesitated.
You're challenging for
You
hesitation.
hesitated. After school.
Almost. But not quite. Joan Turner, you have top notes, and there are 13 seconds left, starting now.
Well, one of my top notes is a note I had from my...
Kenneth Williams, why have you
I'm afraid
challenged?
of hesitation, yes.
But it's such a funny story.
Honestly, Kenneth, you wanted to
No,
let
you are
Joan have a
awful.
go, and as soon as she
It's
has a
my
go, you
first
challenge
go.
her. Well, all right, I've got to be fair on this. All right, Kenneth.
All
It
right.
is
If you can tell a funny and
Yes,
you
all
do
right.
it. Go on. I bet you can.
I'm going to give it to Joan, because you felt last time it was unfair to Clement, so this time I'm going to be unfair to you. And say Joan has a point for that. And there are 8 seconds left for Joan to continue with top notes,
Yes.
starting now.
Well, as I said before, one of...
Clement Freud is challenged. Darling, with the greatest respect, I've got to get it back to
But
him
you
this
hadn't
time.
said it yet.
What?
She said, as I said before, but you hadn't actually said it.
But no, I had
She
to
said
say
well
it.
before, and then she said well, as I've said before.
Yes, she
Get two wells. It
challenged.
should have been
Oh,
out
no,
easy
I must be
well,
fair. I
wasn't
gave it
it?
against him last time.
All right,
Clement,
then.
you have the
Let him have
subject
it,
back.
then.
6 seconds left for top notes, starting now.
It was written on parchment with a fine hand, and panographically, many people said, nowhere has there been a...
On that occasion, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went. He's gained a little on our leader, Derek Nimmo, and Joan Turner and Kenneth Williams are both trailing somewhat.
What do you mean trailing? Where am I? How many have I got? I don't know why I come here, I really don't. I could be insulted in better places than this.
You asked for it. I was being very polite, said he's trailing somewhat. You said, well, how many have I got? I've got
Well, I'd have thought there should have been some points by now awarded.
What for? Cheek? You won before now, Kenneth. Right, Derek Nimmo, your turn to begin. The subject is exercise. Can you talk to us for 60 seconds about exercise, starting now?
Yes, I do like to exercise both my dog and myself, and we can do it concurrently as we wander along any street in Hyde or anywhere else that you happen to name. If you would like to suggest somewhere, I'd be very happy to go along with you. But when I think of dumbbells and Indian clubs, I, like Kenneth Williams, throb. I pick them up in my hands, wave them above my head, and shout, ahoy, I'm fit. And when I feel like that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to say that a very different person emerges from this effete frame. I leap out...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Different people emerging from his frame.
That is good. Oh, that is good.
It's a very clever idea. But he wasn't deviating from the subject. He used an expression about different people emerging. I think it was a colloquial expression. I don't think it's deviating from the subject of exercise. He was trying to demonstrate something using words.
It was
which
more
is...
like exorcise than exercise.
I think that I give Derek the benefit of the doubt, and there are 22 seconds left, Derek, to continue with exercise, starting now.
One of the most wonderful things about living in this sceptred isle is that we are able to exercise our free will. This is something, ladies and gentlemen, which we are hugely
Freud, why
proud
have you
of
challenged?
in
Repetitive,
this
ladies and
fair...
gentlemen.
We had it last time.
Yes, he's had ladies and gentlemen before, I'm afraid.
Who has? I'm sorry.
It's jolly difficult, you know, sometimes to
Never
keep
mind.
going. You have a phrase that comes to mind because you can't think of something else to say about exercise. Clement, I agree with the challenge on this occasion. You take over the subject. 12 seconds left. Exercise starting now.
Switching on the radio in my first car, I often hear a lady saying, stretch your arms, bend your knees, twiddle your toes, raise your chin, move your ears.
On that occasion, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went. He gained another point, and he's now only 2 points behind the leader, Derek Nimmo. Kenneth, your turn to begin. The subject is bubble and squeak. Can you talk to us about bubble and squeak for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is a term that's been applied to myself and Stanley Baxter when, on our forays through the city of London, we have been affectionately nicknamed Bubble and Squeak. He, of course, does the bubbling, being a buoyant and ebullient personality, and I do the squeaking because I'm trying to show my deep reciprocation when they're coming out of my door to my house. I'm making a very nice proposition. I love it when I last but flips the slipper and they say to me, oh, ancient gracious Barkers to Craggy Ithaca, whether you are Ulysses the waxy stuff either eardrum in order.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Well, whatever he's talking about, he's not talking about bubble and squeak.
You know, it's very difficult because I agree with Derek in a way. It's got nothing to do with it. But on the other hand, I mean, you might well say it was a very good interpretation of Kenneth Williams' idea of bubble and squeak. So, as I think he was endeavouring to illustrate then his point about bubble and squeak, I'm going to side with Kenneth on this occasion and say, Kenneth, you have a point at last. Sorry for that. And there are 19 seconds left to continue with your particular bubble and squeak, starting now.
Of course, there is a version that people prepare in frying pans in a kitchen. And Mr. Clement Freud, the notable correspondent on culinary matters, has gone into great detail on this very subject. And he has gone on record...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
I deny it.
You may deny it as often as you like, but I don't think that technically he was deviating from the subject, because...
Well, it may be right. Perhaps he ain't gone on about it.
I'm sure he hasn't gone on about it, but in your imagination, because he writes...
Well, I thought, yes, because
yeah.
he writes about it, you might have
Yes.
discussed it, you see.
So I will give Clement Freud a point, because the audience appreciate his remark. Let's give Kenneth Williams a point, too, because he's keeping the subject.
Yes, that's true.
And there are 3 seconds left for bubble and squeak, starting now.
A most tasty dish, especially after the Sunday joint.
This laughter at the present moment, ladies and gentlemen, has been caused by the fact that Kenneth Williams has come up to see, at the end of that round, how many points he's got. He could have known himself. He's got 3. And he's in 3rd place. And he's trailing more than somewhat behind Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. The subject is age. Something a lot of people feel sensitive about and conscious of, but can you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
Age is something that many people feel conscious of and sensible about, but I don't particularly have views in this way. The Latins called this Anno Domini, which was a cunning way...
Derek Nimmo, wife who challenged.
Domini.
Well, it depends. It depends on when you went to school, actually.
That's true, Nick.
Well,
that is true.
because
By
the
goodness,
Latin...
that's right what he says about it depends when you went to school. It changes all the time. I mean, I remember in my day it was etc. Now it's supposed to be et cetera, isn't it?
Well, thank you
what you
very
were saying,
much,
though.
Kenneth. Would you like to come over here and be chairman as well as sit down?
If I may say, it also depends upon your age.
I was about to say that obviously there
This
was
isn't
a
5 to
change in
10.
pronunciation of the Latin I at some point. I don't know what year, but I know it happened just... I won't say when because it affected me. Right. Therefore, the challenge, I think the fairest thing to do, as there's 2 pronunciations for it, there'll be no points scored. The subject stays with Clement Freud, who has 47 seconds left for age, Clement, starting now.
53, 49, 26, 88, 91, or...
Derek Nimmo, wife who challenged.
88, 2 8s.
I will give you a point, Derek, only because the audience enjoyed your challenge. I've done it to each one of you now, so that's fair.
That's very fair.
But-
I don't think anyone will contradict with that.
Oh, but the subject stays
I
with...
haven't had a point yet.
Yes, you've
Yes,
got
you-
one. You've got one.
you
Shut
get
your
a-
mouth. Shut your great mouth.
You get a point as well, because it's not a justifiable challenge, because you said 88, and it's what you say that counts, not what is...
Not what is written on the card.
Not what is visually in your mind, 2 8s.
Write it down.
Age is the subject on the card, not 88. So Derek gets a point and Clement keeps the subject. 42 seconds left, age, starting now.
But 9 could just as well be called an age, because it is, after all, the number of months, the number of days that you have existed.
Derek, number you challenge.
Repetition of number. the
There
number
was
of
a
months,
repetition of number, yes. So, Derek, you gain another point and the subject, and there are 33 seconds left for age, starting now.
Tell the age of an oak tree, you have to go into the forest with a large chopper. Then you bang away at that particular tree until it falls.
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Repetition of tree.
Yes, there was a repetition of tree. 'cause it was
Absolutely
oak
right.
tree and
Quite
there
right.
was-
Jolly well done, Freud.
Clement gets another point. It's neck and neck between these two now, really. And there are 25 seconds left for age, starting now.
If you are desirous of ascertaining the age of a horse, it is essential to regard its teeth in order to come to some sort of conclusion. So you go into a field...
Kenneth Williams, why have you chanced?
Rubbish. I mean, you standing around looking at a load of horses' teeth. I've got something better to do with my time. We're going to sit here listening to all this rubbish.
But Kenneth, you're obviously trying to bluff your way in again, but I'm afraid
Well, it's
Clement
deviation,
was not deviating from the subject of age. So, Clement Freud, I disagree with the challenge. You gain another point, and there are 14 seconds left for age, starting now.
Frogs can tell age very simply by squawking, and the number of times they open their mouth.
Derek Nimmo, why have you
Number.
challenged?
Repetition of number.
Yes, again. And so Derek gains another point, and there are 8 seconds left for age, starting now.
When I was a very young boy, I used to look forward to old age, but now that I'm getting increasingly elderly, it fills me with despair. Sometimes I go home at night.
That despairing note brought Derek Nimmo another point because he was speaking when the whistle went, and he has a lead of 1 at the end of that round over Clement Freud, who are way out in front of Joan Turner and Kenneth Williams. Joan Turner, your turn to begin. The subject is luck. 60 seconds starting now.
Luck is a 4-letter word, but it's something everyone hopes for. It's a pagan superstition. It's simply God's blessing, and that's what we believe, and we don't believe in superstition in my church. I'm being quite serious now about this. Everyone hopes to win the pools, and everyone has certain superstitions, like you mustn't put shoes on the table. I don't know whether any of you have heard that one, have you? Superstition of putting shoes on the table. No, if you put shoes on the table, it's supposed to be unlucky. Of course, it's only unlucky because it's a horrible smell if you have shoes on the table when you're eating your lunch. Of course, there is. Have you challenged me? Yes. Oh,
No.
Oh, sorry, the challenge has been taken back. Carry on.
Another superstition, which is also to do with luck, is that if you walk under a ladder, the only reason people don't like walking under a ladder is because you might get a pot of paint on your head, you see. And, of course, there's a superstition about the devil, but if you spill the salt, you throw the salt over your left shoulder to send the devil away, you see.
You've repeated yourself.
Best of luck.
I must say, at the end of that round, Joan Turner started with the subject of luck, and in spite of repeating herself incessantly and hesitating repeatedly and deviating incessantly, and in spite of being challenged 4 times, which I completely ignored, she kept going for well over 60 seconds. In fact, the watch stopped at one point and we started it again. And I think it was magnificent because she's never played the game.
No,
and obviously she still hasn't very much idea of how the game should be played. In spite of that, we enjoyed it, Joan. That's the important thing.
Entertaining narrative.
So give her... how many points should we give her for that? Give her 2, yes, give her 2.
Thank you very much.
You've leapt, literally, from 4th place into 3rd place.
Thank you very much. I suppose it's as far as
Still
I'll get.
miles behind this week's winner, Derek Nimmo. That's all we have time for. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Mester and produced by Simon Brett.